Brazil has a diverse economy. They're the 9th largest producer of oil, the 2nd largest producer of beef, the 3rd largest producer of iron ore, and they have the world's 7th largest economy.
At the heart of the scandal are two corporate giants: Petrobras, Brazil's state-controlled oil company, and Odebrecht, Latin America's largest engineering firm. Petrobras awarded building contracts to Odebrecht and other smaller companies. These companies, in cahoots with Petrobras, would overcharge on the true cost of the work. Some Petrobras directors would turn a blind eye, and 3% of every deal would be siphoned off into a joint slush fund, which accumulated millions of dollars. These funds were laundered in a variety of small-scale businesses, such as car washes and petrol stations, and then used to finance political campaigns and bribe politicians in an attempt to win or influence government policy. The investigation, codenamed Operation Car Wash, revealed a flow of money all the way from a number of Petrobras and Odebrecht executives to politicians at the very top of the political system.
Lula. Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva was in the 80s a revolutionary socialist who mostly worked against the military dictatorship as a union organizer. After the dictatorship transitioned to democracy, Lula emerged as a strong political figure and the head of the newly formed Workers' Party. And the Workers' Party wasn't able to gain much national traction until Lula became what some Brazilians called Lula Light. Still Lula, still for the people, still from the poorest part of the country, still representative of that soul of Brazil, but also willing to work inside of the system, also willing to help out big corporations. Running and losing 3 times, Lula was elected in 2003 and remained president until 2011. Lula left office with an unprecedented 80% approval rating. His chief of staff, an economist who was once a guerrilla fighter against the military dictatorship and was captured by them and tortured, was elected pretty much as his successor because he couldn't run for a 3rd term. Now, Lula was almost never blame-free. In 2005, his government was involved in a scandal which saw members of Congress being paid $12,000 a month to vote the way that Lula wanted them to vote.
Lula, Brazil's popular former president, was found guilty of receiving an apartment worth around $700,000. He's appealing against his near 10-year jail sentence. And although Temer's predecessor, Dilma Rousseff, hasn't been directly linked to the corruption scandal, the investigation clouded her presidency. She was impeached in 2016 for deceptive accounting of government funds.
Rousseff was Lula's protege and became the first woman to be elected president of Brazil in 2010. During Rousseff's presidency, global prices for raw materials began dropping, and a corruption scandal paralyzed many infrastructure projects, putting severe strain on Brazil's economy. How bad did it get? Brazil's economy shrank 3.8% in 2015, the most in a quarter century.
The vast scale of the scandal soon unfolded. Today, more than 80 sitting Brazilian politicians are now under investigation, and the scandal has spread to 16 countries across 4 continents. And the companies at the heart of this scandal? Since September 2014, the total value of Petrobras' shares has decreased by $80 billion. At the end of 2016, the US Department of Justice fined Odebrecht $2.6 billion for the bribery scheme, and billionaire CEO Marcelo Odebrecht is currently serving a 19-year jail sentence. The scandal has compounded the worst recession on record to make life very hard for many in Brazil. 13.5 million people are unemployed, and the country's GDP is still 9% below its pre-recession peak. But the scandal has also brought hope. For while allegations of bribes and kickbacks are nothing new in Brazil, this time the corrupt are paying the price for their actions. Because of this, 96% of Brazilians want the investigation to continue. They hope finally holding the corrupt to account will weaken the blight of corruption in their country.
For weeks, Brazil has been consumed by allegations of corruption and bribery at the highest level, involving politicians and business leaders.
Não há reforma política!
On the streets of Rio, São Paulo and dozens of other cities, protesters laid the blame at the door of President Dilma Rousseff.
Every day there's a new scandal. Every day there is something related to money being taken out of the country. And we look at the hospitals and we look at the educational system and we look at all the security thing and everything is really bad.
está errada, o sistema político, os partidos políticos, o meio como o sistema político trata o povo no Brasil está errado.
There are even calls for Sergio Moro, the federal judge overseeing the investigation, to run for president in 2018.
Also Judge Moro, a guy who has taken lessons from the 90s campaign in Italy to take down the mafia. A guy who is willing to make deals with criminals if it means uncovering more of the scandal. A guy who doesn't mind bending the rules if it means getting support from the public. And a guy who doesn't seem to mind being deified and exalted by a lot of the Brazilian public. Searching for some non-political person to put their faith in, Brazilians have taken a lot of the love that they lost for Lula and put it into Judge Moro. He says he has no interest in politics, but he doesn't really seem to be acting that way.
The Supreme Court ordered the country's charismatic former president, who was the frontrunner for next October's presidential poll, Lula, Ignacio da Silva, to go to jail to start serving his 12-year prison term for corruption.
Lula's legal team said it would request a series of injunctions to block his arrest warrant, hoping to buy more time. But Judge Sergio Moro was quicker on the draw. He said that out of respect for Lula as a former president, he would allow him 24 hours to present himself voluntarily to federal police in the city of Curitiba, where he is supposed to serve his sentence. If he does not go, then he says federal police will go out to arrest him.
That has led to a very, very important split in Brazil right now. Because there is this whole group of people that believe that Lula is innocent, that even with everything that the federal judge is saying and with all of the investigations, he is innocent, that he's just a victim of a political scheme against him and against the Workers' Party, and that he should be freed. And on the other hand, there is this whole other group of people that say that no, Lula really was very into all the corruption scheme, and it's good that he's finally paying for the things he's done and for what he's robbed the people of Brazil. They're saying we're not gonna tolerate corruption anymore. We're not gonna tolerate people getting money from us at our cost. And also, one of the biggest silver linings of all of this investigation, if we're trying to be positive while looking at all of this tragedy, is that right now, corrupt politicians and people that are doing wrong in our government, they are starting to get scared because others that have done things similar to them have gotten consequences. They have been investigated. And so, one of the good things is that we want politicians that are in charge to know that you cannot rob us and get away with it.